This video has been so challenging to make. I mean, some videos are harder to make than others for sure, but I have to say this is probably one of the most challenging videos I've ever made. So, all right, I'm gonna get it. And I think in part it's been so challenging for me to make it because I feel like it's so important. Like, this subject is just so important. In today's video, I thought I would talk about levodopa phobia. This is something that is very real, and we need to debunk some problematic myths that surround the gold standard treatment for Parkinson's disease. And I'm going to attach some links in the description down below for you to look and see, like, where am I referencing this information from. So, and then also too, like, I'm coming at this from a person with Parkinson's disease perspective, and also from the perspective of somebody who has friends with Parkinson's disease and have had these kinds of conversations with them. So I'm not a doctor, and it's very important that we have all of the right information that we can have when we're making important decisions about our health and medicines. And so if we're making decisions based on myths or information that is incorrect, obviously that is going to have a substantial impact on our quality of life. The first article I'm going to reference is from the National Library of Medicine. And when I was doing a little research to put this video together, I came across this really great article, and I'd actually never heard of the term levodopa phobia before. And if I had heard it, it just, you know, went out here somewhere. And so what is this phobia about? If you start taking levodopa, carbidopa levodopa too early, that it will become less effective. It's not true. What is actually taking place, it's about how long that you've had the disease. The disease progresses. I have spoken with friends who've had doctors who will not prescribe them carbidopa levodopa because their doctors believe that they shouldn't take it too early and that they should start with a dopamine agonist first. And this article from the National Library of Medicine, so it's titled Levodopa Phobia, a review of a not uncommon and consequential phenomenon. Consequential phenomenon. This is from 2018. And in the introduction, this was really interesting because it's like, where does this myth come from? Like, if it is just a myth, and if it's not the case, where does this myth originate? And in the introduction, it says, levodopa is the gold standard for treatment of Parkinson's disease. However, since the early 2000s, clinical guidelines for management of PD have recommended a preferential use of dopamine agonists over levodopa as initial therapy. And then I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Aggressive marketing of this concept, the concept being that, you know, you should take dopamine agonists first before initiating levodopa, carbidopa treatment, right? So that's the concept. Aggressive marketing of this concept by pharmaceutical companies, as well as neurologists and geriatricians, particularly in the early 2000 period, have led many patients with PD to either reject the option of using levodopa even when it is clearly clinically indicated, or develop a fear about the use of levodopa. And in this article, they also talk about, like, so one of their cases had considered gamma knife therapy for her PD tremor even before considering levodopa. I knew that that wasn't the path for me, but they do work for people. And at the same time, right, like, there's also doctors who have phobias about prescribing agonists. I mean, imagine being a diabetic, or, you know, being diagnosed with diabetes, and you're like, no, I'm not gonna take any insulin because blah, 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 blah. You know, it's, that you're refusing the best treatment options for the disease that you have. It just, it's heartbreaking to know that that some of us out there might delay. And as this article says, and just that it's consequential that we decide to do it, because again, it goes back to our quality of life. If you are one of those people who've been recently diagnosed, I know how overwhelming it is. The diagnosis itself is a lot. And then you go to try to do research about the medicines, and it's just like, whoa, like you've got dopamine agonists, Carbidopa, Levodopa, just the craziest names, and MAOI inhibitors, and it's just like, what is all this stuff? And it's a lot to sort. And then if you end up as well with like a doctor who's not willing to prescribe you Carbidopa, Levodopa because they still believe in this myth, it is important for us to be informed and our own advocates and know, based on our own research, discussions maybe with our spouse or with other people with PD, and that we're making our decisions based on accurate information that we have at that time. And one of the articles that I'm going to put a link to in the description, this is an example of like the really bad information that is out there and that you come across. I mean, like the article is written by a doctor and it's on Very, Very Healthy or Very Well Health or some website like that, and it seems legit. And in this article, like, this is how terrible the information is. It's like, he says that on average that that dopamine replacement therapy or something like that only lasts 3 years. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm on year 9 and it still totally works for me. And I mean, I don't know if that was like for people who are 80 and over, like there was just no qualifier or anything like that. And so like if you're 38 years old, like I was when you're diagnosed, and then you read something that says it's only going to last you 3 years, that means by the time, you know, you're 41 or, you know, 42, you know, it's over. And so we do need to be really, really careful. And then the final fear I want to just address is the fear of dyskinesias, and that with long-term levodopa use, that your dyskinesias will just be like out of control. And it's true that dyskinesias are there. It's a reality of the medicine, but I'm 9 years in and I just wouldn't have it any other way. I accept the dyskinesias, and I actually have found ways to manage them, reduce the likelihood of them. Doesn't mean that, you know, I'll always be able to do it, but I'm super thankful that I can now. So I just kind of hope that this video will assuage some of those fears, and that you'll look into the myths around levodopa phobia, and that we don't have this situation where there are doctors who refuse or don't want to give newly diagnosed people the Cadillac option with a levodopa carbidopa prescription. I mean, it's just, it breaks my heart, because again, I do believe it impacts our quality of life in a huge way. And so please, as always, leave a comment. I always appreciate your time, and check out the links in the description down below, and thank you.